Hello, and welcome back to the Masonic Roundtable, a weekly program where Masons from around the world get together to talk about Masonic news and opinions in a friendly and social manner. As a reminder, the thoughts and opinions expressed here are solely the opinions of the participants and do not represent any Grand Lodge statements or positions. Make sure you keep your conversations open for the public and on the level. To interact with us, we love seeing you live every Thursday night, Facebook and YouTube. So, hello, good evening. The chats are always fun. And just remember, your chat may show up in the show. And if you can't catch us live, you know what to do. Catch us in the replay or in your favorite podcasting app. That's right. My name's John Ruark. I'm a past master of the Patriot Lodge, number 1957, in Fairfax, Virginia. Next up, Robert Johnson. Hello and good evening.
Hello and good evening. Robert Johnson, past master Waukegan 78, and past master of Space Novum 1183. Where I am the sitting secretary for both, I think forever, probably until I'm old and gray. But I would just love, at some point for another person to come along who has the passion to do it, because that's what it takes. But anyway, happy to be here talking about Stoicism Part 2 with my Stoic brothers.
Nice. Looking forward to it. And last but not least for tonight, Joe Martinez.
Hello and good evening. Hello and good evening. Let's see. Joe Martinez, past and current master of Manassas Lodge, number 182 for
TikTok.
Yeah,
TikTok.
Yeah, we're at the sub 100 days mark. Yep. It is under 100 days. So yes,
There's still a chance.
We're gonna get there. No, we're gonna get there, and we're gonna make it, and we're gonna get through it, and we're gonna cross that rainbow bridge together. But yeah, super jazzed to be here. Yeah, and also in a stoic kind of mood tonight. So yeah.
Alrighty. Good stuff. Alrighty, well, as usual, I want to get the pleasantries out of the way because I want to thank our sponsors who support the show. You guys are amazing. We do appreciate you with every fiber of our being. And then some.
All the fiber.
You got to have plenty of fiber in your diet.
It keeps us regular and it keeps you regular.
So yeah,
it takes up to 187 bowls of your other podcast to get to the fiber content.
That's a podcast. Reach back. Holy
That's
smokes.
Right.
Good.
Now with almonds. Yes.
Remember your oats.
Shredded wheat. All right. Good stuff. And then usually we migrate to, what is it, the other thing that we like to do?
We don't have
that other thing. The green bean.
That's it.
Tarot card of the week.
Nailed it.
Yes.
I love that sound effect. It's like it's the worst like standard thing that you get. It's just like, oh yeah, we gave you the scream. Awesome.
It does sound like me though a little bit, even though it's not me. I know it's not a copyrighted yell, is it, John?
No, I think
Creative
your intellectual
Commons
property is safe for now.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. I keep those to myself.
I scream on the inside.
Every work day.
Every work day into a pillow.
A little while back, I think it was the beginning of last year, I went to South Pasadena Masonic Lodge, and we went to the film museum out there. And while I was in the gift shop, I bought the movie tarot.
Oh, look at that.
Ooh.
So this tarot, again, picked it up at the, basically, I think it's like, I don't know, like the Hollywood Museum. It's like the Museum of Film. Like it's funded by the Academy, like the Oscar Academy, I think. Mm-hmm. Somebody out there will know and will correct me, I'm sure. But anyway, so I picked that up while I was there because I couldn't just not do it. And so the cards are pretty cool. All the cards have different, like here's strength. Looks like it's Ripley from Alien.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I like it.
Let's see. Sam Jackson is the tower.
Nice.
Oh wow.
So I give it a quick shuffle here. See
Yeah,
what we
let's
get.
pull a good Stoic card.
A
for
good
tonight.
Stoic card. I'm hoping. Let's see.
Bonus points if you get a virtue.
Ooh.
No pressure. Boom. The
Ooh.
wheel.
Oh, the Wheel of Fortune, and it's
with-
Doc.
Oh, so
Oh, it
happy.
is Doc. That's fabulous.
I love it.
Yeah, good luck, karma, life cycle, destiny, turning points, all of those good things, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Ups and downs.
Of course, if I had pulled it reverse, I don't want to talk about bad luck or anything, but let's just focus on good luck, the positive stuff.
Yeah, which that is related because the goal of Stoicism is to live a fulfilled, happy life.
Yeah, and be cool with an understanding of the life cycle.
And be cool with the world with whatever it gives you.
Boom.
Mhm.
I think we covered it. Have a good night, everybody.
There you go.
The end.
Nice. Well, good. That was certainly a good card. Definitely not planned ahead of time.
It wasn't actually,
It really
so
wasn't. Just saying. Awesome. Well, tonight's episode is one I wanted to do because all the way back in episode 491, we did our recent Stoicism episode, kind of covered the basics, and we got to the very end and we're like, man, we could talk for another hour about this. So we did. So here we are in episode 528, coming back around to do an even deeper dive and start looking at, taking it apart, dissecting it, figure out how to apply it, maybe going into some advanced topics as well. So this will be fun just to pick up where we left off and take the ball even further across the field. So, but if you haven't seen that one, pause this episode, go back to 491 and go check that out. And if you don't want to do that, shame on you, but I'll still let you get a summary now. So what is Stoicism? You want to take a stab, Joe? Because I know you're good at AI summaries.
Oh, okay. Yes. Put my AI brain on. Well, I mean, last time we talked about, for those you said it was episode 491. We spent a good bit of time on the history of Stoicism, right? And kind of dispelled the myth that it started with Marcus Aurelius, right? It was founded probably 400 or 500 years before that. Yeah. So, and how it got started, why it was called Stoicism, because people learned it on the Stoa, and
meaning
just
what?
The porch.
That's right.
The Stoa is a porch. Yes.
So they literally taught their students out on the porch in the open air, and that stuck. The name stuck.
Well, that's how you learned back in the day, right? We didn't have classrooms. We didn't have Zoom. We didn't have Canvas, as all our children are using nowadays.
It's how I learned. I mean, like literally, how many times you get the best advice from some paternal or whatever figure outside on the porch,
rocking,
or maybe on the back of the back end of a truck, just sitting there, right?
See, I had a different memory. I had the you sat on the porch with the older kid in the neighborhood, and he gave you all the stuff you weren't supposed to do, and then and then you went and did those things, and then you got another talking to on another porch about that. But yes, but yeah. So I think some of the things we covered, if I remember correctly, are there's three big chunks to Stoic philosophy. There's the part that's concerned with logic. There's that part that's concerned with the natural world and your place in it. And then there's probably the most important part where it kind of dovetails into Freemasonry is the ethics of life, right? How to live well, and the virtues that are found within. And then and I think we ended the episode with some basic application of how can I apply Stoicism to my modern day in life. Yeah, so I think that's what we talked about.
Definitely. Yeah, that's good. That's a good summary. That's a good memory too, by the way. You're taking your ginkgo biloba, so that's good.
Oh, with ginseng root. Yes.
Remember
those little vials? Do they still sell those little ginseng? It's the gross tea, and it's got little sprouts of ginkgo biloba in it.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably.
I'm sure someone sells it. Yeah. So, just to bounce off of Metal Drew's comment. Like, one thing that's kind of ticked me off as actually reading the source material is this modern concept of like broicism, not stoicism, but it's like when you hear like Andrew Tate and others like totally misrepresent, you know, the actual concepts at all, and then totally just like distort a quote at best. That's not stoicism, right? So if you start going down the internet rabbit hole now, especially on YouTube, like you're gonna find stuff that is completely not what came out of that that Greek philosophy. So that's just kind of a warning.
Well, I mean that's kind of a criticism on the modern world in general, right? And I think to your point, I think some of the applications of Stoicism that we've seen, you know, and we're all on the interwebs, we're all learned folk on the line. But I think one of the big things you see, especially with Stoicism, and unfortunately, this generation, probably our generation's exposure to it, is how it's magically resurged as a life hack. You know, like people treat Stoicism like a life hack. It's like use Stoicism and crush your life goals, and it's like, no, that's you know what I mean? Like, you know, you get those snippets, those 60-second snippets on TikTok or whatever, where it's like Stoicism helped me, you know, peak my bench press, and it helped me get my promotion at work, you know. And
it's like with I saw many years ago, there was this video, I think College Humor did it, and a woman was like kind of selling her yoga class or like program, and at the end of it, like it cut to this Hindu guy, and he was like, this is my life, that's my religion.
That's called full appropriation, right?
Like, and it was funny, right? Because we sit there and it's like people seem to take all of these sort of, I don't know what you want to call them, like these actual they take the culture of whatever, and it's like, oh, this is a neat, meaningful thing within this. Let's bring it to the Western world and monetize it and write about it and create a book and become a guru. And you know, that is unfortunate. You know, it's revisionist. Like when you see individuals like on YouTube who might quote or you know, miscontext. That's probably not, I don't even know if it's a word, miscontextualize. Anyway, you know, they just totally destroy it. You know, they'll take one amazing tenet of some philosophy, Stoicism, because we're talking about that, and they'll turn it into something that can be used for sort of like negatively impacting something else in order to lift you up.
Right. Which is
definitely
not it at all.
This is completely antithetical to Stoicism.
Absolutely.
And oh, sorry. I was just going to add that while we were talking about how we've massacred Stoicism, you know, in the last 30 years or so, it's gotten a bad rap, I think, in the last few years, where people are talking about it and talking about it incorrectly as pop psychology kind of thing, right? Is like an answer to a more learned approach to how we view our minds and stuff. And like I said, it's research, and you even see books on it. You go to the bookstore and you see books on Stoicism. And it's not just, you know, it's not just meditations, and it's not just, you know, writings about Zeno. It's literally this pop psychology movement that's built around Stoicism. You know,
exactly. Yep. Exactly. So let's talk about some of the concepts that are worth exploring. And one that we didn't get to last time that I kind of want to start with is this concept of cosmopolitanism. Because some people believe that the Stoics were like emotionless or self-centered, or like very much in the I have to control myself and there's nothing I can do about anything else, so like screw it. But that is really not written about at all, especially when you look at, you know, the writings of Seneca and Epictetus and even Marcus
Aurelius. Yeah, I mean, he writes about crying.
Yeah, he's got to run the country.
but he writes about crying when loved ones or people or friends of his passed. You know what I mean? So, but
Over half of his children died.
there was a
So
lot of crying going on. So,
yes,
but no, I think you're right. I think that um, modern mankind's idea on Stoicism is that you don't feel anything, right? You're just devoid of emotion.
right.
Where
Hmm.
Marcus Aurelius and Seneca and others, they wrote about don't be ruled by your passions and your emotions, right? So nobody said don't have
Yes.
them.
So so let's talk about that, because that goes into the emotional aspect. Obviously, we're human beings. We have emotional reactions to things, especially if, like, you're driving along the highway, a deer jumps out in front of you. You're going to react, and you're going to have this adrenaline rush that's going to cause you to reaction. It's so the first moment, that's okay. Like, you are a human being, you have to respond in a certain way. It's what you do next. It's the action that you take after that you do have control over, of how you respond. So that's whether you lose your job or you have some sort of misfortune happen to you, it's really more about how do you choose to respond to that reaction. You can have all the emotions you want, hold them, like, be emotional people. And on positive notes, Seneca wrote a lot about how happy he was to be with family and that kind of stuff, and all the pleasures he had in life. So it's not saying they were even devoiding themselves of pleasure. It was just that, hey, everything in moderation, including moderation, and um, you choose how you react to things after you got past the initial shock of it.
Yeah, it's about not becoming devoid of emotion, but sort of differentiating yourself between emotion and extreme emotion, and then
Yes.
knowing how to navigate those channels and how to um, sort of quiet the extreme emotion so that you can make sound judgments. Because every time there's an extreme emotion, it's because something has happened to us or somebody that we care about, somebody within our sphere of influence. And I think in particular, uh, the male, the way guys think, you might have seen a video called "It's Not About the Nail." It's not the nail, and it's this guy who he's sitting with his lady on a couch, and she's like, "I've got this really bad headache," and then the camera backs out, and she's got a nail in the center of her forehead, right? And he's like, "Well, you have this nail," and she's like, "It's not the nail. Like, just listen to me." It's about, so the lesson in this is to listen, right? But what's funny about this is this idea that um, this sort of emotionally charged decision making, and how, like, we men are always wanting to solve problems. So this guy's like, well, let me just pull the nail out, right? So he's a problem solver. And so guys in particular, we're always looking to solve problems, and
Right.
we're always having to make choices very quickly in order to do things. And sometimes I think, and it can fall on anybody regardless of genders, you can make rash decisions. And so Stoicism teaches a way to sort of rationalize your thoughts and your emotions so that you can make rational decisions. Because in the end, right, like, okay, so we mentioned death a few times already. Stoicism is very natural in that it teaches that we have to accept things that are inevitable in life. We
Yeah.
must become comfortable with them, at least be comfortable.
Exactly. And in the sense of, like, it's the nature of things to get old. It's the nature of things
Yeah.
to have
And
things change, right? And so, like,
and
stop trying to fight it.
yeah,
Go with the
because
flow.
those are, right,
Hmm.
like, wasted emotions. You cannot waste time thinking about inevitable outcomes because it is an insult to the time that you have now. Like, use the time you have now for the given purpose of what it should be used for. Don't sit here just crying about one day I've got to die. Like, yeah, we all have to face that. It's a, right. What does National Treasure say? It's the debt all men pay, right?
Hmm.
It's the one thing that's always going to happen. So in that specific instance, that's kind of how I look at it is don't don't sit here worrying about something that is inevitable because you're wasting the gift of right now on something that is unchangeable.
Yeah. And I like how Steve put it. It's how you respond to the sensation. It's the sensation that counts. One should learn from the sensation. Just like Epictetus, who was born a slave, became free, wrote the Enchiridion, which is a really good little handbook. Nelson Mandela had that as a source of inspiration when he was in jail, and it's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. So that's a good lesson there. Which brings up a good question from Brother Gary Neal. Kind of like keeping our passions within due bounds, right? Because you and I were talking in the green room, Robert. It's like there's a lot of moral philosophy that parallels Stoicism and Freemasonry, and this is a perfect example to kick things off.
Yep, I absolutely agree. Our tenets and cardinal virtues are almost completely mirrored. I mean, just think about temperance and the idea of moderation. Even though sometimes,
I'll drink to that.
Take moderation in moderation.
Well,
because sometimes it's time to party. You know what I'm saying? Like when Joe gets elected to the East another time.
Woo! Fourth time's a charm.
There will be some passions that are just going to shoot right past those bounds, run them over with a Mack truck, and probably hurt somebody. But
well, actually, I want to pull another thread real quick, and then I'll let you go, Joe. Like you said, that's another kind of myth about Stoicism, is that if they were so cold and robotic that they didn't have fun. It's like, of course, they're like, they were all for eating a good meal and having a good drink, but they're like, you have to even do that in moderation, or you have to know what your limit is. That's kind of where they were going with it, is don't, when you have temperance, you kind of have to find where the line is first, so you know not to cross it, right? So enjoy it. It's there. That's what it's there for. That's the nature of it. And don't go crazy. So, Joe?
Yeah, no, I think just the last thing I was going to say about it was, I think the pop culture idea around Stoicism is that you are emotionless, right? And you just have you're meant to be emotionless about everything. And I think they take, like, even some of the things that Robert was saying, and they take it to the extreme. It's like, well, yeah, don't expend energy worrying about the fact that you're going to pass on one day. Now you have to be completely devoid of emotion about it, but again, there was, I think all of the great Stoics, none of them ever said be without emotion. They just said, don't let those emotions become destructive and hinder your life. You know what I mean?
Right.
And you don't have to do destructive things like burn your house down or, spend all of your 401k to be destructive. But to Robert's point, if you just sit there and worry and stress, and that becomes the main focus in your life, you're burning the candle on today, and that counts just as equally as just doing the really dumb stuff. So I think, again, we always like to, especially in today's day and age, we like to look at things so far to the extreme, right? For it's not an example or an exemplar unless it's all the way to the extreme point. So
yeah, that really speaks to today's sort of ideology. I saw somebody in the chat said, Monica said, but our current society doesn't accept the inevitable. They're always looking for how to cheat the inevitable.
Yes.
And I think along with that, we can look at something that took me many years to understand. And I didn't really confront it until I was over 30, which is, I lived my life very much until I was in my 30s, where things were just black or white. So as Joe is saying, it's either all this way or it's all this way. And, going through like things like talk therapy and stuff, when we talked about stuff, I mean, my therapist always brought up philosophy and things because she knows that's what I read and what I like. And so she would read up and then we would talk. And that was really helpful. And one of the things that, you get out of this is we talked so much about Stoicism. In particular, my inability to see the gray area, right? It's not always so far this way or just this way. So yeah, I appreciate that comment, Monica, also.
Mm-hmm. Very insightful. Another thing that we didn't touch on last time, I think it's worth involving, is that, okay, so we have this sense of cosmopolitanism, the bigger view. We're all part of one big family, and it's not just like my state or my neighborhood or my country, it's global. Many times throughout the writings, they talk about, like, hey, zoom out, like literally picture yourself way far out into the cosmos looking down where you can't even see your town anymore. Like, look at the big picture. Is you worrying about what was said on the evening news worth getting worked up about in the grand scheme of things, in the supreme grand scheme of things? Chill out. Like, it's really not that big of a deal, or it's not worth the emotional investment and energy that we give to a lot of things. There's some things, absolutely, again, but in moderation. But holy smokes, if one way to think about it is multiple times, look at the view from above, look at the view from the cosmos looking down. Is what you're worried about that bad?
Well, I'm glad you got back to cosmopolitanism, because I think that's a really important part. And there's like a whole vein we haven't touched on where,
Mhm.
a lot of your Stoic philosophy has to do with the fact that you need to realize that, just like you said, you are not just a member of your tribe or your family unit or
Right.
your neighborhood or your job community. You really need to start to understand, for some of this stuff to actually click, that, almost all of the ancient Stoics talked about that we all have the logos, that rational spark inside all of us, and that is the thing that unites us as an entire humanity, right? And we tend to forget about that stuff when we're worrying about the local minutia, or I have to go argue with the HOA because they charge me for my garbage cans twice this month, or we have to go picket the town hall because they're building a data center in my neighborhood. Like, we're so worried about the local, right, that we always tend to forget that we're part of a much larger community. But again, that's a general statement again about society nowadays, right? Is we always forget that it's more than just our neighborhood that is of concern.
And in the, like, the Neoplatonic aspect of, like, there's this greater source from everything and we're all just pieces of it, then I really do like some of the quotes that talk about, like, um to like get up and get out of bed and like do the thing that you were made for. They talk a lot about living according to nature, which is a really abstract concept, but um I think we can kind of figure out what it is, in the sense of, like, kind of what your talents are, what you do well, and how you contribute to the world. Back to the cosmopolitanism issue, is that you have your talents, go be the best you that you can be. So they do mention that. And if you're, you know, if you're a paper pusher, be the best paper pusher that you can be, right? If you're a plumber, be the best daggone plumber, because that's how you contribute to the greater good, the greater society. And they use the word. I think Marcus Aurelius uses the term greater good at least a dozen times or more in meditations. So it's part
But
of it.
it's, yeah, no, but I think that's a really great point. And I think just to put an underline on that, it's, you talked about Marcus Aurelius right there, and we know he was emperor of Rome, and he knew his station and he did his job in his station. But that idea of cosmopolitanism and Stoicism really is an understanding that every single person who's a member of this larger community of mankind, or people kind, is worthy of your dignity, right? And when you lose
Yes.
sight of that, that's
Mhm.
when you don't realize the things that John just said. Like, yeah, I'm a plumber and my job is to do that, and I'm going to be the best at it that I possibly can be. That's great that you have that own self-worth, but the community around you has to have that worth just as equally as you do, right? In order for this to be as egalitarian as we want it to be. And it's not, right? Because we always look down at our nose at other people, and people always look down at their nose at us. And we don't have this concept of we're part of a much bigger whole.
Yeah, it's interesting the way you guys have both talked about this, and we're thinking about the Joe. You post posted the quote by Epictetus, you are a citizen of the universe. And when we think about just that concept, right, it's like all of us are a part of, well, as far as we know right now, like we're in an enclosed system, right? So we're all part of the enclosed system. The molecules that drive you, that make you up, were the same that, have existed since the beginning. And with that, there has to be this sort of harmony that goes along with it, which requires something special, this divine logos, this idea of a philosophical betterment, a way to understand and control yourself. Because without it, right, like I quoted entropy a moment ago, but like if you know about thermodynamics, then you know about the increasing likelihood of chaos within the enclosed system. So how do we fight against that? And for me, it comes back to, like, as you guys started to mention, like understanding everybody's part in the system. I'm starting to sound like that Lego documentary, The System. If you understand everybody's part in the system, and everybody is gives everybody else their grace and the dignity that they deserve as a part of the machine that we all are in, everything works better, and the chaos doesn't come the way it would naturally. I just think it was I don't know, I just liked the way you guys put that, so it made my brain spin a little bit, so thanks.
There's a related Marcus Aurelius quote: "Remind yourself of your duty to be a good man and rehearse what man's nature demands, always, though, in kindness, integrity, and sincerity."
Sounds so Masonic.
It really does.
Wonder where they got that from.
Interesting.
Something.
All right, so then the other interesting thing that I like about Stoicism is the dichotomy of control. Man, that has helped free my mind of a lot of things that I can control versus things that I can't control, and the things that we imagine we can control, right? And so, without going into like gory detail, like the whole point is to really step back, and the things that might excite you, might get you worried, get you upset. At the end of the day, can you do anything about it? If you can, do it. Go take action. If you can't or aren't willing, move on. Like try to focus your energy somewhere else. You only have but one life to live. So that's it is very liberating, and it's not in an apathetic way. So I want to make that very clear. Just to give up and say, well, sorry, I can't do anything about world hunger, so I'm not going to try. No, that's not it at all. But can you feed your neighbor?
Right. Yeah, I'm trying to find the right word to comment on that, because I think you're not selling it as hard as I would like you to. So I need more emphasis and more emotion.
What if I said,
but
what if you said, maybe you can't buy, the thing, but you can create microtransactions in your community, right? Microtransactions. Can you donate to your neighbor after a storm and everybody's, has no electricity? Do you walk next door and offer candles? Like, what are we doing?
It's your duty, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and back to John's point, I think again, it's this misunderstanding of Stoic philosophy, where this idea of control, and I think a lot of people who first read Meditations has a lot of examples of this. They read it and they say, okay, well, I need to resign myself to the fact that I can't control shit. You know what I mean? And it's like, well, oh well, I'm, whereas if you read it on the second and the third and the fourth time, you start to see that what all these philosophers were saying is that you don't need to be resigned to it. It just helps to give you clarity, because you're not expending emotional energy trying to control everything in the world around you. You know what
Exactly.
I mean? And but you're talking to a species and a creature that just our entire society is built around the fact that we've learned to control things. We've learned to set things on
Especially the
fire.
Western world. Absolutely.
Well, even go back further. Go back to the start of civilization. What did we do? We started making fire, and we could do it over and over again. And we started building stuff, right? So we started to put these systems of control around our entire way of life, as opposed to just wandering around half naked and hitting animals with rocks and eating them. You know what I mean? So it's very societal to not want to give that up, or that illusion of control and
Yeah.
get away,
From the first formations of society, orders and architecture. I'm just kidding. Anyway.
No, that's so true. I mean, Monica found the quote from Marcus Aurelius: "You have power over your mind, but not outside events. Realize this, and you'll find strength." So the Stoics call this the externals, right? The things that happen outside of your control. And there are positive externals and there are negative externals, right? So we tend to put emphasis on things that are externals, like money, right, or health. Those are things that are positive, generally positive, and if you have poor health, that's generally regarded as negative. However, those things in themselves don't make you a good or bad person. Because you have more money or because you have less money doesn't make you a good or a bad person, because those can be taken away at any time, or those can be added at any time, and don't really rely on what you can do, what your specific actions are, and how you interact with people in the world, right? Because we all know people who, are the happiest people in the world, and they're highly disabled, or you have people who are, rich people with great health and are complete jerks, right? So yeah, like Joe. So
Yeah,
there's that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think that, without beating a dead horse, these are great lessons to help us reframe the way that we view our place in the world, right? That in the modern world, we build these ideas around being able to control things, being able to influence things, even when a lot of times we can't. And then even having concern for things, and that becoming the impetus for doing something or not doing something, right? Like not being able to control the economy, and not being able to control what our world leaders are doing, and not being able to control the opinions of others. We spend so much energy on that. Like Robert and I disagree, and he posted something that makes me super bummed out. So I'm going to spend so much emotional energy just focusing on the stupidity that Robert said, when I can do something else and take that energy and apply it elsewhere. But we don't, right? Because it doesn't give me a dopamine hit to not be mad at Robert. So
True.
You just be a part of my echo chamber. It's okay.
Okay. We have a Facebook group for that.
I know.
Well, and just to go back to another thing about the nature of things, of how we have, we're all going to get old. Hopefully, we're all going to have our ups and downs, and we should not try to avoid those, but more, even better, embrace them as like this is just part of life. A concept that goes way back to about 500 BC is a philosopher by Heraclitus, uh, and he was really famous for kind of coining the phrase that like everything changes, like you never step in the same river twice, which is big because he's like, hey, even in the river example, either if it's not the water changing, the man has changed. So everything changes. When you cook food, it changes from one form to another, right? When you brush your teeth, you're changing them from one form to another. So everything changes. And back to that control thing, if we just learn to adapt rather than try to go back to the past or try to control it, man, it's just so much more liberating to understand that, hey, embrace change rather than try to fight it.
And the idea that you talked about a freedom there, to embrace the idea of non-control also we can embrace within that, I think also is the idea of saying, I don't know, and being cool with it.
What?
You know,
Humility? Holy
well,
smokes.
I mean, so there's a freedom that comes with this.
Yes.
And oftentimes I think we're always so uh, very focused on wanting to have an answer. Um, and, I have to give it to them. I think it was James Buckhorn who I was talking to many years ago. And I think it was a friend of his, mutual friend, came up to him and asked him, and he said, I don't know. And he said, excuse me, RJ, I'm going to look this up with this new brother. And I was like, oh yeah, let's learn together. Right. And it was this interesting moment, but it was a complete freedom as well. Because it like the idea of giving up control to like control somebody's exposure to a new concept, rather than do that, you gave it up and you gave them the control. You know what I mean? So there's a little bit of that, I think, that resonates with me.
Yeah, this is another good quote. Also, again, from the Enchiridion, from Epictetus. Don't seek for everything to happen as you wish it would, but rather wish that everything that happens as it actually will. Then your life will be serene. Right? Stop trying to hope for the outcome that you want. Just rather hope for things to happen as they will. Now, that is not saying don't try to, influence or contribute the best that you can. Just know that you've done your part. I think that's the big difference there. Again, it is not saying give up. It's not saying don't try to make the change, make the effort, do your job, right? It's just saying what can you control, do that, and then hope that it turns out that way. But if it doesn't, that's fine too.
Yeah, it's interesting as we've talked about these. One of my other favorite philosophers is Nietzsche, right? And I've talked about him ad nauseum, but he was a complicated character, both loving and sort of criticizing Stoicism at parts. He liked the idea of resilience and doing your part and your job. But, his critique of Stoicism centers around the idea of, and this may be telling when somebody says Stoics are cold and emotionless. Well, Nietzsche criticized Stoicism for a denial. Like he saw that, he felt that the same sort of error in thinking about Stoicism. He felt like, hey, Stoics, they're throwing away the natural instincts and passions. But he was wrong, right? Because Stoicism doesn't throw away natural instinct or passion. It just asks us to tame them. And so anybody out there who, if you read something like Beyond Good and Evil, which is a really good one, which is another book that I would recommend if you're interested in the idea of objective view, the big picture. That's a good book for that. But if you're looking for Stoic content, it's probably not the greatest.
Yes.
Yeah. Now, one quote came to mind this past week when we had the Charlie Kirk event happen, and everybody was jumping on the interwebs having an opinion one way or the other. And I was like, guys, like, if now's not the time, like, let's just cool our jets. Everyone just kind of shut up for a moment, right? And I immediately thought back to a quote out of Meditations, Marcus Aurelius, that says, it's also in our power to not have an opinion about a thing. You do not need to have an opinion about everything, right? It's so easy and so tempting in our own tribes that we live in, right, to want to plant your flag on your side and say, this is where I stand. Guys, you don't have to have an opinion about everything, right? You know, there's people that are really good, even in the political space. Someone might be really good on foreign policy, and another one might be really good on economics. You don't have to be an expert in both of those. And to your point, like you said, Robert, it's okay to say, I don't know. Or, I don't need to know, because I don't need to have an opinion about everything. It's just so hard for people.
Or at the very least,
Mm-hmm.
right? I don't know if it's real, but I will say I saw somebody repost something that looked to be a tweet by 50 Cent. And he said, on this situation, I do know one thing. We should shut the blank up.
Yeah.
And the reason he said that, I believe, is to say, we don't know anything yet. It's actually sound advice to say, hey, let's wait for the facts before we jump to conclusions. Because, so many people jump to conclusions that it just, if you're okay with later on apologizing for something you said, and the consequences that come along with that, then, hey, cool.
Yeah, because that happens on social media every day where people are like, oops, my bad, I was wrong. Let me take down my angry post with the flames next to it. No, I mean, it's everything that Robert is saying is factual and logical and sound. The problem is that we live in a world of instant reactions, right? Where we apply no thought. We live in a world of outrage culture, right? Where you have to be on an angry side of an argument, right? Both sides are angry. Nobody's happy. We live in a world of where even your average everyday person has to put on a performance to get their thought across, right? And this is like, maybe it's an indictment on social media as a whole, but you have a lot more people throwing their opinions out into the world than ever before. Much more so than you had 20 or 30 years ago, right? Because
the signal to noise ratio is way off. Yeah.
Well, yeah. And then you just compound that with the fact that we live in a society of, what's a good way to say it, of information overload. We have to be part of the noise, right? We feel incomplete unless we are part of that noise that's going out into the world.
I need you to, if it's possible, in a sort of roundabout, shorter way, please expound on your thought about performance in what you just said. You said give an opinion, but it has to be a sort of performance. I think this is like,
well, I would, okay.
I think this is like real deal, serious time, pay attention, because I think this is something that is a problem.
Okay, well, thank you for putting me on the spot. But I think that, and again, I love social media. We're on social media. I consume social media every day, but I think with the moving of the opinions from the spoken word out on the porch to where we started this conversation to, we want as many people as possible, people who don't even know us, to take our opinion in and bring it into themselves. We've shifted from, unfortunately, a fact-based culture to a performative commentary culture, right? Where it's not the substance of what you're saying, it's the manner and the sometimes outrageousness in which you say it that gains clicks, that gains likes, that gains hearts, that gains little flame emojis. You know what I mean? And we see it every day, right? Like, people are out there saying some really stupid stuff, but they're saying it because they want to put on a show, right? This is their forum for it. And now everybody has a forum, whereas 30, 40, 50 years ago, only a few select people had a forum. And a lot of times they grounded what they said in fact, right? Like, let's talk about, and this is becoming a whole social commentary now, but look at like the newscasters of old, the Cronkites, right? Like, you don't have those anymore, right? Because even in the media that we consume nowadays, it's all based on performance as opposed to actual factual content. I tried not to rhyme there, but it came out that way. But I'm not putting on a show. So, but yeah, no, I think, like I said, I think that we focus more on that than we do actually getting our facts across. But this spits right in the face of where John started this with. Sometimes it's best to just shut your mouth. Like, your opinion is unnecessary and it does not need to be heard.
Right.
We don't understand that as a society anymore. We just don't. Right? Because we all have a free, easy to access way in order to get our performance out there, oftentimes with no repercussions.
Yeah. Where we keep dipping into the Enchiridion well, but this is a good one. If you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. And not in the performative way, but in the humility way. Right? To say, you know what? I don't know everything. I need to have a beginner's mind. I need to, like, hit the reset button on this. So that's the only way you're going to get better at a task, at philosophy, right? Just don't try to come in. What do they say? Not a Stoic thing, but it's like the expert's mind can't learn anything new, something like that. I'm paraphrasing it horribly, right? But if your cup's already full, then you can't add anything more to it.
Well, I have 3 expert minds at home that range from 12 to 20, and
they know everything.
They know everything.
Same
they know more
here. Oh my gosh. Oh man. So yeah, I think we've really covered a lot, and I'm glad we went where I'd hope we get to, is just to really think about these different aspects that are less about the surface level, robotic Stoic way of thinking of things, and more into how do we, like, use these in the world. And I've just been like a huge fan of Stoic philosophy over the past 2.5 years, seriously, and just dabbling before that. And it really has changed my outlook on life. It changes how I approach daily tasks. It's really a good guiding principle on how you act and interact with people in the world. That's what I like about it. It's not a religion, right? Although in the Hellenistic era there were many gods, and that was just kind of part of the culture. That was left to the individual. And a lot of the Stoic philosophy is really just, hey, we all come from something bigger, and that's about how deep we're going to go. Almost like Freemasonry. And so, but it is a good guiding set of rules that help you not be a jerk while you're here on planet Earth for the short time that you're here.
He's a more modern Stoic philosopher writer, and he's been credited with popularizing Stoicism, perhaps in some of these, like, monetizing ways by selling a book or whatever. But he is interesting in that he is a modern voice and talks about Stoicism in modern day and practicality. I put his name in the chat. It's Massimo Pigliucci. I think that's how you say his last name. I'm not sure. But when I was researching for the episode, I did come across a few of his essays that were out on some different platforms like academia and stuff. And he's a really interesting character in that he does have great examples of applying Stoic philosophy, the ancient Stoic philosophy, to a modern life. And it's not as easy as you might think. I think he has to jump through some hoops, and you really, if you do pick up one of his books, be ready to sit back and reflect a little bit. It's not always the easiest, to read, at least when I was reading some of it. But it's a good resource, I think, for folks out there who are looking for perhaps a practical guide to Stoic philosophy for today.
Yes, he did write a book called A Handbook for New Stoics.
There we go.
That's probably the best one. I have skimmed that one, and it's a good intro if you need a place to start.
Oh, you skimmed it, so now you're an expert, so now you know everything, and you just have to talk about it.
Yeah, we got to do our performance on it.
It's best that you look like a fool, Joe.
Actually, one of the great, I didn't get to attend all of them, but I did attend one or two, was Manasseh Lodge did a book club, and they did Marcus Aurelius' Stoicism. I'm sorry,
the
meditations. Yeah,
Mhm.
meditations. And that was such a great, like the reading, of course, was cool. And I went through it, and I underlined and stuff and wrote in the columns and everything. But I really felt like some of the best revelations to come out of it were in the conversations that we had in the book club. So I do got to I have to give a shout out to Manasseh and Joe for putting that on. It was
Well, so yeah, thank you. So stop the applause. We still haven't finished it. We still have one last part to do, and it keeps getting bumped and bumped and bumped and bumped because people's lives get busy. But we still have one more to do. But to your point, one of my favorite parts about that was people who have read it that was the very first time they read it. They had homework and it was, read this book, Inside Meditations, and give me your thoughts on it. Just some of the things people were saying were things I had never thought of, and they were 100% spot on. And it was so fun listening to people who have never read Meditations or probably any other Stoic book and glean stuff,
like seeing, okay, not gonna name names, but seeing people come to that conversation who, and I mean, probably outside of school, never like read an essay on a philosophy or an op-ed or something that was interesting on something so kind of like etheric as, how we think about the world, came to that conversation. And it was like, wow, this to me was proof of the gold in the text, because, and not only that, but the sort of, I want to say like bewilderment or just straight up like in the literal sense of amazement. The, like when I would say like a noob meets a complex thing and they come together and you hear something for the first time because everybody else you've ever talked to about Marcus Aurelius' meditations has similar thoughts to you because you're all reading the same stuff.
Right. Yep.
And hearing somebody who has never read it was just like, there were mind-blowing concepts and comments being made. And it was just like, man, I feel this big, like I went to college for this.
Right. I'm a learned person. And yeah, no, that literally is my favorite part of doing those, is just the commentary that springs up from people. And I don't want this to sound derogatory, from that you least expected, because to your point, probably the last time some of these folks have read a book like that was in high school, right? Where they were required to do so, or they just skipped it and read the Cliff Notes and wrote a crappy book report on it, yeah, no, that's my favorite.
Nice.
You're my favorite.
Okay. No, you're my favorite. Let's give final thoughts. So, and I'm not going to prompt a question. I'm just going to say, based off of this conversation, what do you want everyone to leave with? So we'll start with Joe.
No. Could happily talk about this for another hour or two. So, and I'm sure you wouldn't mind. So maybe we'll have a part 3 soon. But I think the big takeaway for this sharing session that we had was, and I think you touched on it at the very beginning, is that Stoicism is meant to reach you on the inside, right? It doesn't care about all the external fluff and crap, right? So, we live in a world where most people search for freedom or chase freedom in being financially independent or having political liberty, I guess you could call it, or having control over every single circumstance and all the people around them and every single outcome that they can that pops up. But I think if you understand Stoicism, at least from a very high level, you'll start to see that the only guaranteed freedoms that you have, and this is where it brings you peace, is freedom in your will, freedom in the judgments that you make, freedom in the moral choices that you decide upon, and freedom to respond to fate in a way that is best for you, and those are all the places where nobody can touch you and nobody can hurt you, and that's your inner sanctum. So if there's anything to take away from perusing Stoicism, I think that's the biggest takeaway for folks, and I think that's where we can get the most bang for our buck.
Nice. I like my bucks to bang.
Mm.
Robert?
Yeah, I just feel like this conversation has been wonderful. I don't have anything, negative to say about Freemason. I'm sorry, about Stoicism. And I think, like, a lot of times I always have some sort of, it's great, but I think Stoicism in general is a wonderful addition to your already existing practices. And I recognize that it may not be a simple task to live a new way. But I think exposing ourselves to some of these methods um, can increase the benefits in your life exponentially. Stoicism just, it offers this sort of unparalleled template for navigating uncertainties in our lives. It helps us cultivate inner peace by allowing us, as we've talked about, to regulate our emotions better. And really, something that I think calls to Masonry is living with integrity. Um, if Stoicism was not influential, there would be countless. I mean, you would go, okay, so in the modern world that we live in today, even the church is influenced to an extent by Stoicism. It has an influence that spans across almost all societies, and this really underscores its timeless appeal. And not only that, but its effectiveness in guiding people toward a meaningful life. So I think it's a great add-on. It's a +1 for you. And if this episode helps you out, make sure you check out part 1.
Nice. And be ready for part 3.
For sure.
For sure. Another reason I wanted to do this episode was how chaotic the world is, and there's lots of people going through lots of things, and a lot of it has to do with high uncertainty. There's things that we've gone through. It's like I've seen the meme a couple times already that at least the millennials have been through their 5th unprecedented cycle of events happen to them. And guess what? It was just as bad back, in ancient Rome, ancient Greek as well. So it's just, how do we deal with this? How do we deal with chaos, uncertainty, and what things can we do, right? And I'll leave you with two quotes to finish things out. And they're both from Meditations, which is Marcus Aurelius's private journal. First one is from 4.12, who says, 2 kinds of readiness are constantly needed: to do only what the logos of authority and law directs, with the good of human beings in mind, and to reconsider your position when someone can set you straight or convert you to his. But your conversion should always rest on a conviction that it is right or benefits others and nothing else, not because it's more appealing or because it's more popular. So do what's right, do what's best, and be willing to change your mind. And then a good summary of all of that comes up to no longer talk about being the kind of man that a good man ought to be, but be such. Just do it, right? There's a couple of different quotes that relate to this that just say, stop talking about philosophy and be a philosopher. Be it, go do it, go live it, and show the world the type of person you're trying to be. So that's my advice for taking this home. And again, I look forward to the next conversation. So with that, I want to thank you all very much for watching, and keep searching for more light. Have a good night.